1584, Toledo, Spain. The air in the small, stone-walled room is thick with silence, broken only by the scratching of a quill against rough parchment. A notary leans over a leather-bound ledger, his hand cramping as he records data that, by all laws of nature, should not exist. He is not writing a confession. He is not transcribing a prayer. He is noting a biological measurement. Subject's pupils 4 millimeters at rest. He holds a crucifix before the woman sitting in the chair. He watches her eyes, 6 millimeters when presented with the host. He frowns. Insufficient dilation. Flag for secondary observation. He is measuring the involuntary muscular contractions of a woman's eyes during communion, recording the exact diameter of her pupils as she gazes upon cross. This is not medicine. This is evidence. The woman's name is Isabelle Deorda. She is 33 years old, her hands resting still in her lap, her breathing controlled, her heart hammering against her ribs. She does not know it yet, but in 18 months, learned men will cite the failure of her pupils to widen as irrefutable proof that she must burn. But this scene in Toledo reveals a terrifying anomaly. By 1584, this procedure was not a novelty. It was a standardized bureaucratic process. The Inquisition had been measuring the autonomic nervous systems of women for over a century. They had cataloged pulse rates, measured the volume of tear production in milliliters, and counted the frequency of blinks during the recitation of the Lord's Prayer. They possessed entire libraries of manuals dedicated solely to interpreting what the flesh revealed when the mouth remained silent. What were they actually hunting for in the tremors of a hand or the moisture of an eye? And why did they require 300 pages of dense, instructional Latin to find it? If you have ever questioned what happens when a powerful institution ceases its search for truth and begins the industrial manufacturing of guilt, you have found the right place. Join us as we exhume the documents they tried to bury. Subscribe to the channel, because the nightmare that consumed Isabelle happened to 60,000 other women, and the method they perfected did not die in the ashes of Spain. Spain, 1478. The machinery of the Inquisition grinds into motion. The popular understanding of this era is a montage of religious extremism. Fanatics hunting heretics, Jews forced into the waters of baptism, the accused stretched on racks until their joints popped, the sky choked with the smoke of screaming flames. That history is not incorrect, but it is radically incomplete. The numbers tell a different, colder story. Between 1480 and 1530, the Inquisition executed approximately 2,000 people. It is a terrible, documented statistic. Yet in that same 50-year period, they interrogated over 40,000 souls. And of those 40,000, roughly 23,000 were released without execution. This leaves a massive, unaccounted gap. What was the Holy Office doing with the other 21,000 hours of labor? The answer lies rotting in the archives of Valladolid, in the dusty repositories of Seville, and in forgotten basements across Spain where researchers are still unearthing ledgers that the public will never see. These discovered books are not transcripts of heresy. They are observation logs, scientific journals of misery. Subject perspired when asked about Sabbath. Subject's hands remained dry when touching the crucifix. Subject failed to produce tears during the recitation of the Passion, observed 3 consecutive times. Page after brittle page, woman after woman, the Inquisitors tracked pulse, pupils, perspiration, tears, and trembling. The Inquisition was not merely prosecuting religious dissent. They were constructing a biological catalog of how the human body betrays the secrets of the mind. And they had one specific demographic they targeted for this research above all others. By 1540, nearly 58% of those dragged before the tribunals were women. This was not because women were committing more acts of heresy. It was because the Inquisition's scientists believed the female body was a more transparent vessel, that its biology would reveal the truth more clearly than the guarded male constitution. Why women? What specific biological markers did they believe the female form held that men's did not? Isabelle's door opens on a Tuesday, September 1589. The wood is heavy, The hinges groan. Two men stand in the frame. They are familiars, officers of the Inquisition. They do not shout. They do not smash the pottery or tear the tapestries. The violence is in their quiet. One of them displays a rolled parchment stamped with a heavy red wax seal. Isabelle is not told the nature of her crime. That revelation is reserved for later. First, she is escorted from her home, away from the familiar sense of her kitchen, to what they euphemistically call the audience chamber. This is not a dungeon with dripping walls. It is not a torture room filled with iron instruments. It is a chamber that looks terrifyingly bureaucratic. There is a sturdy table, 3 high-backed chairs, and a crucifix mounted on the whitewashed wall. A window with iron bars allows a shaft of sunlight to illuminate the dust motes dancing in the air. The ordinariness of the room is a calculated weapon. This setting is prescribed in the Inquisition training manuals. These were not improvised tactics. They were protocols written by Tomás Torquemada himself in 1484 and meticulously revised 6 times by 1570. The manuals dictate the strategy for the first 72 hours. They state, "The accused who enters in terror will confess to anything, creating noise. The accused who enters in composure will reveal everything." They did not want the chaotic data of panic. They wanted the clean data of observation. Terrified people are useless for the delicate calibration they were attempting. Isabelle sits in that sunlit room for 6 agonizing hours before a single word is spoken to her. She sits in the silence, aware of 2 notaries watching her from behind a carved wooden screen. They are not recording her confession, for she has not opened her mouth. They are writing descriptions of her physical state. Subject shifts weight in chair every 11 minutes. Subject touches face 4 times in the first hour. Subject's breathing rate accelerates when footsteps echo in the corridor. They are not interrogating her mind. They are cataloging her nervous system. And here is the detail that reframes the entire historical narrative. Isabelle does not know it yet, but she has already failed 3 tests. These were not tests of theology. They were tests of biology. Let us pause Isabelle's nightmare for a moment. To truly comprehend the trap closing around her, you must understand the twisted medical theories the Inquisition held regarding the human body. In 1487, 9 years after the Inquisition was founded, 2 inquisitors named Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Springer published a tome that would stain history, Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches. Most know it as a manual for hunting witches. It is that, but buried deep in Part 2, Question 1, Article 6, there is a section titled, Whether Witches Can Habitate the Power of Generation and Obstruct the Venereal Act. Translated from the Latin, it asks whether a human body touched by evil physically responds differently than a pure body. The Spanish Inquisitors seized this concept and radicalized it. They theorized, wrongly, but with fanatical consistency, that conversion to Christianity was not merely a spiritual event, but a physiological mutation. They believed that when a soul genuinely accepted Christ, the nervous system physically changed. Tears would flow more easily during Massachusetts. The pulse would quicken in anticipation of the Eucharist. The pupils would dilate automatically at the sight of the Virgin Mary. And if those biological reflexes did not occur, the body was remembering an older, forbidden faith. By 1520, the Inquisition employed physicians. Their job was not to heal the sick, but to measure the accused. They possessed a toolkit of perverse precision. Calipers for measuring the millimeter expansion of pupils, water clocks for timing the rhythm of a pulse, and graduated glass vials for collecting and measuring the volume of tears. In Seville in 1537, a tribunal dedicated 4 months to testing this hypothesis. They brought in 50 confirmed conversos, Jews who had converted to Christianity, and 50 old Christians, people whose bloodlines had been Catholic for centuries. They ran both groups through identical religious stimuli while meticulously measuring their physical responses. The results, which still exist in the archive, showed absolutely no consistent difference. None. The conversos wept, stayed dry, trembled, remained calm, dilated, and constricted in the exact same random, chaotic patterns as the old Christians. One of the Inquisitors, Francisco Pena, wrote a note in the margin of the result ledger. The flesh does not differentiate what the soul contains. Our instruments detect nothing. And then, immediately below that admission of failure, he wrote one more command: continue observations. Expand sample size. They knew their method was scientifically bankrupt by 1537, yet they continued to use it for another 150 years. This is not ignorance. This is something far more sinister. Return to that silent room in Toledo. It has now been 18 hours since Isabelle's arrest. She has not slept. She has eaten nothing but a crust of dry bread and a cup of water. The window behind her is black. Night has fallen. Finally, an inquisitor enters. His name is preserved in the records: Alonso de Mendoza. He is 58 years old, a veteran who has been breaking people for 22 years. He carries a polished wooden case, the size of a prayer book. He does not take the seat across from Isabelle. He sits beside her, close enough that she can smell the stale ink on his robes and the scent of old paper. The interrogation begins, but the questions are not about Judaism. Not initially. Describe your wedding night, he commands. Isabelle blinks, hesitating. She has been married for 14 years. She has a daughter. What does her marriage bed have to do with heresy? Mendoza opens the wooden case. Inside, resting on velvet, is a thin brass rod marked with millimeters and a small, circular mirror. I asked you to describe your wedding night. Did you feel joy? She answers, her voice trembling. Yes, of course. Did you weep? No. Should you have? Mendoza makes a sharp note in his ledger. He then pivots to the birth of her daughter. Did she pray during labor? Which specific saint did she invoke? Did she feel ecstasy, his specific word, when the child took its first breath? Isabelle is frantically trying to calculate the correct theological answer. But there isn't one. He is not listening to her words. He is watching the thumping of her carotid artery in her neck. The notary behind the screen is timing her pulse with a water clock. Then Mendoza performs an action that appears in dozens of Inquisition transcripts, but is almost never discussed in history books. He lifts the small mirror and holds it 6 inches from Isabelle's face. He orders her to look at the crucifix on the wall while he studies her reflection. What is he looking for? Her pupils. In the records, the notation reads, subject's pupils constricted when viewing crucifix. Expected dilation absent. Inconsistent with documented response of genuine converts. But here's the detail that makes this scene truly horrific. Isabelle knows exactly what he is doing. By 1589, everyone knows. Converso families have been training their daughters for 2 generations on how to fake the correct physiological responses. Cry when you take communion. Allow your hands to shake visibly when you kiss the cross. Practice dilating your pupils by staring into candlelight before bed. Isabelle has practiced. She is 43 years old, and she has spent 20 of those years teaching her body to lie. And yet, it is still not enough. After 22 grueling hours of interrogation, Isabelle is taken to a cell. It is not a dungeon, not yet. It is a room measuring 10 feet by 12 feet, furnished with 1 flickering candle, a straw mattress, a bucket, and a cellmate. The cellmate's name, according to the records, is Maria Enriquez. Maria is 51. She tells Isabelle she has been imprisoned for 3 weeks, accused of reading prohibited books. She seems kind, her face lined with exhaustion, her voice thick with sympathy. She is lying. This tactic is also codified in the Inquisition manuals. There is a section titled De Testibus Occultis on hidden witnesses. The instructions are clear. When observation alone fails to produce evidence, place a cooperative witness in the cell. Instruct her to befriend the accused. Record all conversations. Promise leniency in exchange for testimony. They called these women Orejas, ears. Maria asks Isabelle gentle, probing questions. What was your life like before this? Do you have children? Are you afraid? Isabelle, isolated, terrified, and desperate for human connection, begins to talk. She speaks of her daughter, of her husband who died 2 years ago, of how she lights candles on Friday evenings. Not for the Sabbath, she insists quickly, but because Friday is the day she cleans the house. Behind the wall, a listening notary writes it all down. 3 days later, Isabelle will be confronted with a transcript of everything she whispered to Maria in the dark. It includes things she doesn't remember saying and things she definitely did not say, but she cannot prove she didn't. Who would believe her word over a written record? But here is where the method descends into something worse than entrapment. Maria does not just ask questions, she performs. At night, when the candle burns low and shadows stretch across the stone floor, Maria prays loudly. Her hands tremble violently. Tears stream down her face. She clutches the wooden rosary they have allowed her to keep, and she weeps, genuinely weeps, while reciting the Pater Noster. Isabelle watches from her mattress, and she knows. She has to know. This is a demonstration. This is what genuine Christian devotion is supposed to look like. This is the standard her own body is being measured against. So Isabelle tries. She prays. She forces tears. She makes her hands shake. But the notary records subjects tears inconsistent. On the seventh day, Isabelle breaks. She confesses. She admits to lighting candles on Friday, to avoiding pork, to teaching her daughter a Hebrew blessing. The Inquisitors listen intently, recording every syllable. They ask follow-up questions. Isabelle answers it all. She is weeping now, genuinely weeping, because she believes this is the end. She thinks confession brings reconciliation. She expects to do public penance, yes. She expects to wear the San Benito, yes. But she expects to be alive. Mendoza closes the heavy ledger. He thanks her. He tells her she will be moved to a different cell while they prepare her reconciliation ceremony. Isabelle is escorted out, her legs weak with relief. The door closes, and then, alone in the room, Mendoza writes a single sentence that appears in thousands of Inquisition files. It is the sentence that determines whether a human being lives or dies. Subject's confession exhibits physiological inconsistency. What does that mean? It means Isabelle confessed incorrectly. Not that the content of her confession was wrong, but that her body, while confessing, did not display the required biological responses. There is a manual entry on this exact subject, written in 1552 by Inquisitor General Fernando de Valdez. It states, "The truly repentant show specific signs. Copious tears, trembling that begins in the hands and spreads to the torso, difficulty breathing, faintness when contemplating the magnitude of sin." Isabelle cried, but not copiously enough. She trembled, but the shaking did not spread from her hands to her ribs. She did not faint. Therefore, she was not genuinely repentant. Therefore, she was eligible for execution. Isabelle Deorda was executed on March 15th, 1591. It was not done in secret. It happened in public, in Toledo's Plaza de Zadova. Isabelle and 14 other condemned prisoners, 11 women, 3 men, walked from the Inquisition prison to the plaza. They wore the San Benito, the yellow tunic painted with flames. Her daughter, Anna, was in the crowd. She was 9 years old, required by law to attend her mother's execution. And here is the detail that makes this history unbearable. Anna's testimony still exists. It was given 20 years later when she herself was accused. She describes watching her mother burn, and she describes what she learned in that moment. "I learned that no truth could save her. I learned that her words meant nothing if her body spoke differently. I learned that I must teach my own body to lie more perfectly than she did. I learned that surviving meant becoming a stranger to my own flesh."